Hello, class. Hope you're doing well. It's the second week of school. Hope everyone's settling into their new routines and have begun all their projects, including this project. I'm setting this up as a recording to allow everyone to be able to get the briefing on the next phase of the project after we have our class and you present your concept and your research on your baby board book and get some feedback. From there, I want to go through what the next steps are as we begin week 2 and enter into week 3. So this is going to be a briefing of the next steps of the baby board book assignment to help everyone get a clear understanding of what to do next and how to continue on the development of their concept and their design. So the steps we're going to go over are as follows. We're going to talk about the fact that each of you should have presented or will be presenting, depending on when you watch this video, the research concept deck from week 1, and that you're able to share what you've researched and the inspiration that you put together, and then the concept in written word or spoken word as you present it. And we will then talk about the viability of your concept, how it might be refined, what suggestions to move forward. So from there, it'll be about understanding and responding to that feedback. And then it may also call for refining or finalizing your book concept statement. So what you've written so far may be spot on. It may vary a little bit based on how we discuss it. And if so, please make adjustments to it or add on to it or finalize it if you're still at this point not quite sure what your concept specifically is. So that'll be the first step. And then we're going to enter into the planning and designing of the book. And the first step will be to create a storyboard of your book and map out sort of the architecture of the book, how each page will work, what will be its purpose in terms of how it relates to your story or your educational statement that you're making or your experience that you're providing. And from there, that will lead towards the beginning of your design and creating design sketches of preliminary layouts for both spreads or a spread or two and some cover ideas. And I'll show you coming up here examples of that and more specifics on this so that your week can be productive and you can kind of move to the next level. So as I said, this is an example of where you should be right now or getting close to being if you're still working on this and watching this on in the first part of the day on Thursday. And again, you're going to be creating a presentation that talks about DERT, brings in what the assignment is, repeats it in words, and then does a showcasing of 3 baby books that are inspirational and talk about some of the elements of those designs or how those stories are told, showcases those top line inspirations or influences that you find interesting. And then we'll begin to delve into what your design direction will be by creating research boards, mood boards that showcase various design styles within illustration or typography or color or just overall layout approaches, and put those together in a few different mood boards. And from there, some magic will happen in terms of you coming up with an idea. You should have already looked at all the previous baby board books from the past year on the YouTube channel or in the class resources folder on the Google Drive, and just kind of gotten an idea of what you think your topic should be, relating back to the lecture on baby book design, and thinking about what it is that you want to say, and then having your concept statement. And that's what we'll be looking at today, or we already have looked at it. So then what we want to do as the next step is we want to create the storyboard. And when doing the storyboard, it's going to be really about following the structure of the book, being sure you have a clear understanding of this 16-page book and how it works. And again, the idea of a 16-page self cover is that it's a book where all the pages are the same thickness. They're all boards that are mounted with paper. and the 16 pages include the cover and the back, so that's 2 pages. That leaves 14 pages for the inside, which are 7 spreads, so 2 pages each. 7 of those equal 14, so a front, a back, and then 7 spreads. So from there, it's more about the 7 spreads and thinking about how you want that to work once the book is open and what you want to happen on each page and each spread. And again, think about it from the aspect of being able to communicate your concept, tell your story, provide the kind of inspiration or experience that you want the parent and child to get together in looking at your book, and begin to kind of plan out where that goes within these seven spreads. And then from there, once you have the architecture figured out and you begin to assign how each page and each spread will work, and then from there you begin to kind of sketch out how those visuals can happen. And this is something you can do within the storyboard phase in a rough way. And then from there you can bring it out into creating layouts that are more formal and begin to execute design ideas in a more specific way. Now, here's where it might become different for each of you, depending on how you like to work. If you prefer to just kind of like stay in the sketch mode and draw up some ideas of what you want to do, that's perfectly fine, or that's even a good place to start. But you're also encouraged to switch it over to the digital realm if that's more productive for you, and begin to create layouts within a digital format. And I'll show you some examples of that. But basically, the idea here is for you to take this time to begin to try to discover the best way to design your book, and the best way to illustrate it, and the best way to use typography or imagery, depending on what your choices are. Again, the idea of your research and inspiration should connect to this, and you should look to that in terms of how you want to create your design and make your choices. And the idea of here's an example of the storyboard. So let's go back to the storyboard for a second. And in developing it, you may want to start in this kind of wireframe method of just thinking about what the content is. And in this book, you see at the top sort of the concept in the most basic way: animal noises to teach babies about making and the noises animals make. And here it's sort of the first stage of just basically identifying just a front and a back. That's sort of like the open book flattened down. And then from there, there's the 7 spreads, and it shows how the intention is to basically feature a different animal on each page and go through it in that sort of method, identifying what the animals will be. And here's where you make these decisions. Like, there's a limit to how many you can do, and coming up with what you want the content to be could be done in this way, where it's not so much about design, but it's more about the concept and assigning each page to have a specific piece of content, or look at them as spreads as well. This is looking at it as pages, but you can also look at them as spreads. But then that should become more of this idea of linking your intention of the architecture of the information to how you'll begin to communicate that, and begin to think about a storyboard within this sort of sketch level, and develop this. And now this example here shows pages 1 through 14. It doesn't show the cover in the back, and it could easily have had a square here with the cover and a square here with the back, but it's okay. It's more about planning the insides. And here you can kind of see that it's getting pretty specific in terms of not only what's going to be on each of these spreads, and in this particular book, it was about the spreads, and many books are more about spreads than pages. So that should be something you should consider as well, where it shows pretty much on the left side of every page, there'll be an illustration. On the right side, there'll be a typographic treatment that kind of has a little bit of whimsy to it, and is arranged in different ways to keep kind of the excitement. And it also shows basically the writing of this, that it's going to be basically describing these breakfast dishes, these breakfast meals. And from there, it could begin to develop into thinking about what your illustration is going to be like. And again, this all depends on your methodology. If you're going to be drawing based on your own style and you want to do this kind of rough layout, that's great. If you're going to be doing designs that are more utilizing Illustrator or InDesign or Photoshop, then sketches like the one from before may be enough, and then you can switch over to beginning to just create real life interpretations of it. And here's the Breakfast Time book with a cover and a few spread ideas. And here's where the illustrations start to become drawn, and typography is purposeful and color is looked at in a specific way. Now, this is looking pretty real, and depending on the style of your drawings, it may vary how far you can go with this. And since this style is a little maybe easier because it's more vector oriented, being this productive and going this far with it was just fine for week 2. But if you only kind of get to this level where you're just showing kind of these ideas, that's fine too. And I know it's kind of unspecific there, but I have to be able to adjust to each of you in terms of how you're going to execute this. We have 3 more weeks after this to finish this, maybe 4, I think it's 3. So it's not, if you're able to work this quickly, then perhaps what you want to do is look for various ways and various options. So this is basically one design executed at one time, but maybe there's other typography, other ways of using color, and there could be an option 2 that looks just like this. So it all depends on the way you're working, how fast you are, what it is you want to focus on. And if you are doing an idea that does come quickly, it's more minimal, it's easier to execute, then do think about looking at various possibilities and using this early stage to really explore and experiment with how you can do this. So you can find this on the written version of this on Canvas under the assignments section, under Baby Board Book Part 2 Concept Development. Here's a portion of the page, and here's actually the page live. There's also going to be a link to the PDF of the Baby Board lecture in case you want to just read that again and remember some of the principles we talked about there last week. And there's also going to be here a template to a Baby Board Book template. And this is an InDesign file, a packaged InDesign file that's going to have the a layout of the book that's blank. So here you can see on the side that there's this kind of 8 spreads. So again, it's 2 times 8 is 16. And then the very first one is the cover here on the right side, the back here on the left, and there's a spine here in the middle. And you can see that this cover page is actually wider than the rest because it has a spine that wraps around the pages, so it's a bigger page. But this is intended to be used for when you begin to create your design. It's not something you have to necessarily use now if you're going to be sticking to the sketch stage. But if you're going to be going digital, then I would for sure download this because it's the right size, the right format, and it's got these pieces in place. For example, on the cover, we're going to have the DERT logo in the corner, and on the spine, it'll be at the bottom this way. And on the back, the bottom 1/4 will have this element, and here it is closer, that allows you to have a design that can run behind it. But here you can see if you applied color to the white, it is going to be boxed out by this this white rectangle. The same with the DERT logo on the cover. It'll be a white box with the black logo on it, so your design has to work around that. On the spine, the logo can be white or black, or it can be a color if you wanted it to be like if you had a certain color and you wanted to blend in better. So there's a little more flexibility on the spine, but on the cover, it's going to be in the white rectangle. Here on the back, you'll see that there's a place here that says your name. Eventually, it doesn't have to be now, but eventually when you're working on this, if you could put in your name as part of the credit for the book. And all this needs to stay the same. I don't want you changing the type style. I don't want you to move it. I want all DERT Baby books to have this in the back in the exact same position and the exact same typeface that it is, and that you work around these elements. On the spine here, it should be the title of your book, and it could be your name. It doesn't have to be your credit. Same on the front, the title of your book with your graphic, and you can have your name credited there. So this is a kind of a layout of what your final result for this for the work you're doing this week could look like. just as an example, it shows the idea of the storyboard and the planning of your book and conceptualizing how all the spreads will work, and then looking at a couple of cover ideas, cover and back ideas, as well as creating some initial spreads. Again, I think this is an example of sort of at the not the highest level, but the most developed. It doesn't have to be this refined or this developed. And ideally, it would be that maybe there's only one cover and a spread or two of one design, and then another design that maybe goes further than these. I think these are variations of the same concept. So don't be afraid to make completely different ideas in terms of design to be able to discuss which is the best direction to go, because we have the time to do that. Unless you're doing a really ambitious illustration method, that's going to take a long time. But in terms of how I want you to treat this, I want you to then take the presentation you made for this week, which you see here, an example of that, which kind of comes up to the statement. And then I want you to add on this week's portion, keeping the thank you page, and then updating the design concept text if needed, as we discussed in the beginning of this video. So once you're done with that, there is a folder on the Google Drive that I list here on at the bottom of the assignment on Canvas on where to post it. And you should post a presentation that has this full updated version of your presentation, putting it within what you've already made, adding your pages, and of course, keeping the thank you page. And then be sure you remember that there are the resource folder on Canvas, and the YouTube link I sent you in the last assignment and the last email I sent has videos of the page throughs of each of these books. And here's the one we were looking at in terms of now you can see the result based on the concept board or the concept presentation, and then the concept statement, and then looking at the initial designs, and then seeing how it came to life as a final product. And I think by seeing the steps we just saw, it kind of takes away a little bit of the mystery or the potentially overwhelming nature of what it looks like to create a book like this. Now that we kind of know the secret sauce and the steps involved, it's easy to see that you're not far right now from getting to where you want to be with the book. Here I'm showing the class resources where you can find those movies at the bottom of all the different assignment folders. Is something called class resources, and in that folder you can find the syllabus, you can find these lecture videos, and you can find examples of past decks as well. And then there's the movies in this folder, and you can click on those, and they're also available on YouTube. So that's it for now. I'll be seeing you, if you're watching this before class, I'll be seeing you soon. And I'll be emailing everybody with a list. We're gonna do group waves, and I'll email that to everyone so that you can plan to be in class for about 50 minutes to an hour with 4 or 5 other people besides yourself. And you'll have an assigned time within the class, within the time of the class, and you'll see that on Slack as well as an email. So great, looking forward to seeing everyone soon. Let me know if you have any questions, send me an email or send me a Slack message, and we will talk soon.